Welcome to Percolating Change, the podcast where we brew better outcomes one sip at a time. I'm Alicia James, and today I'm chatting with Mark Schenk. Mark is a managing director at Anecdote, and his topic today is how to explain complex things. But before we get into that, let me introduce Mark. Mark is a world-renowned business story practitioner who has been on a crusade to help improve business communication and reduce misunderstandings that cost time, energy, and money. Mark works with leaders worldwide to help them be more engaging, more impactful, and more effective communicators, by using story as a practical tool to tackle business problems. So in the next 15 to 20 minutes, Mark will cover how organisations can get better at explaining complex things. Welcome, Mark. Looking forward to chatting with you today on this.
Yeah, thank you, Alicia. I'm looking forward to the conversation as well.
Excellent. So can you explain what this means, how to explain complex things? And also on the heel of that, could you just say who the target audience is and just go into, how we can fix this debacle?
Well, debacle is probably a good word.
I'm glad you said that. I'm not sort of using a complex word.
I guess the big picture is that we are so much worse at communicating anything, let alone complex things, complex changes. We're so much worse than we give ourselves credit for. Mm-hmm. We think we're good, but we're actually, if you do the research, the evidence is damning about how bad we are. So whenever you're pursuing a change agenda, we create most of the problems ourselves because of the choices we make about how we choose to communicate them. So people don't understand us, they don't believe us, they're not engaged by what we're saying, and there's a bunch of reasons for that. But the beauty is that it's easy to, I say it's easy. You can make different choices and be much more effective at how you communicate. And so that's what I want to talk about today is how do we get better at explaining these things, decisions, changes, strategies, whatever it is, and make different choices that help us be more effective and, in fact, cause us fewer headaches from a change perspective.
I like the sound of that, Mark. Make better choices, because I'm going to be listening to that. I think I could learn a thing or two from this conversation. Yes. So if I'm starting on a program of work, let's say I'm a comms manager, I'm there to explain the complex things and to that really great impression so that people understand what it is I'm trying to say clearly and succinctly. What are some of the things I need to be aware of or I should do, or some of the things that I do that I should be mindful of?
Well, I guess the first thing to be aware of is that we're conditioned to communicate in particular ways from the time we leave primary school. It's reinforced in high school. It's embedded deeply when you do your university degree. You smash into us with hammers when we do MBAs. And then when we get to work, it's all we know about how do you communicate in business. And essentially, it's called the smart talk trap.
Talk trap. Okay.
We use clever language because we've got wonderful vocabularies because of our amazing educations. And so we strategically reposition our change agendas so that people can achieve sustainable competitive advantage through the application of blah, 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 blah. So we use all these big words and we think we know what they mean, but our audience has no idea what we're talking about. And so this is being aware of this smart talk trap and how it's what we're conditioned to do. And one of the big traps is it's so deeply ingrained in our business communication that we take it for granted and we don't notice it and we ignore the evidence. And just the evidence is pretty condemning. one of the things I cite often is a Harvard Business Review article published in 2005 by Kaplan and Norton, the guys that invented the balanced scorecard. Essentially, they were kind of leaders in strategic planning across the world for 15 years. And their Harvard Business Review article, the second paragraph starts with the statement, "Our research over the last 15 years shows that 95% of people don't understand the strategy, can't explain their role and bring it to life." And that's just one example of the data that's available that shows that we're not as good at communicating. In fact, we're a lot worse at communicating than we give ourselves credit for.
I've got a quick question, which may seem random, but it's just coming to my head. So how we write should be different than how we speak, yeah? So
Yep.
I'm reading, yes. So is there an misalignment there? Because it's easier to... Sorry, go.
It's different. So it's easier to use examples, story in oral communication, but you can absolutely do it in written communication.
Yeah.
But you've just got to be aware that when you start to write, our brain clicks into kind of left brain mode. There's all rules and processes about how you write and, grammar and structure, and it takes us away from story. And instead of the detail, we love to tell people the big picture. Instead of using a simple word, we use complex words. And I remember I was giving a presentation 5 or 6 years ago at a down near Western Port Bay in outside of Melbourne, and there was a lady at the front table who was very engaged by my first hour or so. And when we had a break, I went over and said, "Oh, okay, so how's this going?" And she goes, "Oh, I love this, blah, blah, blah. I've got a degree in communications and I love storytelling. But here's what happens. I write a piece of correspondence or something for our intranet or newsletter, and I include exactly what you're saying, a specific example to illustrate the point. And then it gets up through the approval process, and the first thing that gets ripped out are the stories. And so you're left with the shell and no substance. And this is what we're up against in business, is that we've got absolutely the wrong idea. We think that clever words, abstract words, are good communication, when in fact they are the enemy of good communication.
So I noticed that thank you, Mark, because I noticed that your Anecdote, they have 3 categories. So there's storytelling for strategy, there's 2 other areas. So if I'm writing a new strategy for big transformation, I hope I'm not taking this off on a tangent, but I'm just fascinated about storytelling and how we can incorporate that. That's my little mantra for 2006. I want to incorporate storytelling into my change management. So how do you help organisations build storytelling into, a strategy and how they create their strategy?
Yeah,
if
cool.
That's not too simplistic.
No, look, I'll give you an example.
Yes.
So we're working with an insurance company in Sydney. They're going through a transformation, and they were very careful that they called it a transformation, not a transformation project, because they didn't want the project to be responsible. Anyway, so they've got a transformation going on. And they have a big team of people, and they've spent a lot of time putting together what they called their transformation playbook. But it wasn't sticking. They called us in to help translate their transformation strategy into a transformation story. So we work with the leadership team. The process that we go through just forces people to use plain language. It also forces them to take you on a journey from the past to the future. Very simple narrative structure. And look, it's really quite straightforward to turn, I say straightforward, it's only hard to do because we're conditioned to do the opposite, right?
Yes,
that's the only reason it's hard to do.
Yeah.
Right? But it's every change agenda can be transformed into a story. In the past, we were like this. And, there were some really good things and some not so good things. Right? That sets a baseline. And then you go, but something's happened. Digital transformation, new competitors in the market, legislative changes, whatever it might be, but something's happened and we have to do something about it. Right? It's an opportunity or a challenge. So here's what we're going to do, right? And this is where this is the first time that you talk about the change or the transformation. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to change the way we're structured. We're going to focus on adopting digital tools, and we're going to do something else so that in the future we can be like this. So every change can be translated into that sort of story.
Using that basic formula.
Exactly. Now, there's a lot more to it, like you bring it to life by using specific examples. But as I say, every change needs a story. But almost, I remember with this organisation, they had the playbook, which is 86 pages long, by the way, the playbook. Oh,
wow. Playbook doesn't conjure up 86 pages, but there you go. No,
and one of the change experts, there was a bit of resistance to our involvement because she kept waving the back of her hand over this playbook and saying, "Look, the story's all in the playbook." And it took a while for us to get across, but you can't just wave your hand at something and call it a story and make it a story, right? You can wave your hand and call it a story. That doesn't make it a story. So you actually need to do the work to translate the change strategy into a narrative, a story. But it's very doable. You just got to essentially know what you're doing and be prepared to do something slightly different, something that we're not accustomed to do.
Yes. And you know what? Just listening to how you're describing it, I think it lends to enabling my understanding. It makes you really get down to the nitty-gritty instead of saying we're going to be doing this at this big level. You've actually got to unpack it, haven't you?
Yeah. Can I give you? I want to give you an example. This is a real life example of a way a change was described. Right. This is a senior executive in an Australian company in 2023 communicating. A senior manager communicating to his team about a change.
Yes.
Right. Strap yourself in. Here we go. All right. Conceptually, we have a proposed pivot here and consider what a commercially optimized outcome would look like post getting our ducks lined up after a meeting with the commercial team so we can exit the financial year with an idea of what the target architecture looks like and what the sequencing looks like to mitigate operational risks and mobilize activities in FY23 so we can be on the front foot in 24 with regard to these activities. If the answer to that is yes, then we need to be very clear on the sequencing, the internal and external comms, and ensuring we don't damage the optics of how well tech and ops is investing on behalf of the business. Now, I want you to shake yourself awake and just tell me what I just said. Play back anything that you understand about what I just said.
Yeah, it sounded really good while you were saying it. I thought, okay, so you want to make this change. I don't know exactly what it is, but we've got to make ourselves get to that point within this particular year 24 to 25. I don't know exactly what it is that we need to do, but we need to be very clear about what that is. But I don't know what that clarity is.
Exactly. You don't. You know that we need to be very clear, but you've got no idea what we're being clear about.
Yes.
Right? So it's a wonderful. I collect in my. I've got a thing called a story bank. I strongly commend to you and your listeners to start collecting experiences. Collecting.
Can I start with that one? I like that one. I'll nick that one. Yeah.
So I've got in my story bank. I've got a set of tags. One of them is amazing abstractions. And I just collect stuff like that, and because it is amazing what we pass off for communication, and we sound impressive, but we're not.
We're not, yeah.
And this is some beautiful research was done, the Harvard or somewhere, one of the universities, about the effect of using complex language like this, and we use complex language like this often to appear smart.
Oh, I was just thinking that, yeah.
But the audience reaction is that they think you're dumb. Right? So you achieve the exact opposite of what you're attending, because you've used this language that we're trained, that we're conditioned to accept without question, but which is it's just terrible communication. And when you're asking people to change, our belief at Anecdote is people need to understand you. Right? They need to understand the change. Step one. And it's impossible to understand language like we've just heard.
Yeah.
They need to be engaged by it, and they need to believe it. And this passes none of those tests.
Yes, exactly. And with that particular example you've just given, I know it's a recent one, just because I like closing the loop, what can you summarise? Because you were part of this, yeah? You were reading this, or you collected this?
No. This was sent to us by a senior manager who said, I'm giving you an example of why I'm leaving this company.
Oh, okay.
And he said,
I have no idea what
this is what my boss just sent to me. I have no idea what he means. I'm leaving. And so that was the context.
Yeah, I love that. Well, you know what I mean. I don't love that. Yeah. Do you know what the other problem is? Is this approval process? So is this an education piece then? So talking to that woman that the comms person, and yes, she's writing a comms piece with a story that she's got to get it up through comms, and of course they have their approval process, etc. So it's no point doing that unless we change that thinking with corporate comms and getting that whole thing signed up.
That's
there,
right.
That it's now going to look like this, because we're going to be hitting this all the time.
Yep.
How do I go about
right.
that?
You've got to partner with comms.
Yes.
You've got to partner with them. I made a terrible mistake back in 2009.
I love that word, partnership. Yeah.
Yep. 2009, I was working for a government agency that was going through a major change. We worked on the story, and there's a really coherent story explaining the transformation that they were about to embark on. And comms just fought me every step of the way. And I remember I was sitting in a meeting room, and there was 3 people from the comms team, my project sponsor and me, and we're sitting there trying to figure out what's going on. And eventually I figured it out. Comms thought that they needed to have materials, brochures, intranet pages, all this, and they keep saying, Mark, what's the channel? What channels are you using to get? And I'm like, eventually I just realized that the channel that I was relying on was leaders. So when it comes to change, the most important channel for communicating change is the leader. And so our focus is on equipping the leader with not just the story, but with the skills to use that story effectively. So
how did you, because you said you that problem, so...
From that moment on, with every project, we engage with the comms team right from the front end.
Yeah.
So we partner with them. We are partners in helping the organisation communicate this thing effectively.
Yeah.
Whether it's a transformation or executing a new strategy. So it's very much a partnership.
Absolutely. And I'd have to say, I think, I don't want to summarise, but I think I'm going to speak from a change perspective. Most change managers, OCMs, will work with the comms, corporate comms. But it's not just about just working with them, is it? It's selling this concept. So you've got leaders. You coach educate work partner, the benefits, why do we do storytelling? This is, it will just, decrease the time that we need to actually get this message across, because we're telling a story and everybody likes a story. Where am I going with this? Mark? But so how do you actually, I know I'm breaking this down even further, but how do you get comms to want to partner with you with the storytelling? How do you go about that?
So a great question. And the way that we do it is we use stories. We go, look, I just want to give you an example of what happened at a previous customer. And a similar situation was, tell the story and go now. And so one of the things, though, is you never say to somebody, I'm going to tell you a story. So,
oh, God. Okay.
Right? So
Okay.
We're talking about the tool called story, and it's completely fine in this situation.
Yes.
But if I was a change manager, for any change managers who are listening to this, please don't stand in front of people and say, I want to tell you a story about the change.
Yes.
Right? Because it's going to trigger a whole bunch of, we call them anti-stories. Right?
Yeah.
People immediately start going, stories take too long, stories aren't businesslike, stories are made up.
Yeah.
Right? So the tool called story is very powerful, but because it's negatively coded in a business context, you just want to avoid using the word.
Yeah, exactly, to get the message across. Yeah, I like that. Because you wouldn't say, I'm going to use ProSci to do this. You'll just use ProSci.
Yeah.
It's a framework. You wouldn't announce it to say that's what you're going to do. You'll just, whatever tools you've got, you'll tap into it. But yeah, I'm glad you've said that, because some of us might go and say, yeah, I want to tell your story. And I think, God. Yeah.
And that's it. It's a groan factor. Yeah. Hey, look, I just want to share with you an example of of great change communications. This is from oh goodness, it was 2017. I was working in Singapore for a global food company, and they had a new head of occupational health and safety to come in and lead a big transformation of their occupational health and safety. Mm-hmm. He'd never had a role in occupational health and safety before. He was a 30-year veteran of the company, spent most of his time in headquarters. And so people are going, what is this guy got to do with health and safety? Mm. And, so why is he here? I was running a workshop, finished at 5:00. The customer came in, the head of comms, and he said, Mark, I'm sorry about this, but I need you to come in and sit in on something. And he took me into a room, and the regional comms lead was coaching this new leader on the 10-minute talk that he was going to give at the upcoming town hall. There was like 1,000 people in person, another 9,000 online. 10 minutes to introduce himself. And they were going through the PowerPoint deck. Okay. And after a while, I stopped them and I said, can we try something different? And Andrew, the guy, said, oh, Mark, been around a long time. You can't teach old dogs new tricks. Anyway, after about an hour of conversation, he agreed, ditched the PowerPoint. And the company to this day uses the speech that he gave, that took only 6 minutes, by the way, as an example of great leadership communication. And what he did is he told two stories. The first one, essentially a vulnerability story. I grew up in headquarters. My job was making businesses run efficiently. I knew about health and safety, but I knew it was kind of important, but it never really, was never really front of mind. And then I took over. I was sent to be the general manager of a plant in Russia, and he told the story about how one of the workers were killed and the terrible impact that had, and how he was a local Russian guy, and he was the breadwinner for the family, and the family wouldn't let the company come to their funeral, and it was horrible. And he goes, anyway, so he told that story about why do I care about health and safety? And then he turned to the issue of the day. And that was, okay, here in APAC, we've done lots of work on processes. systems, processes, reporting around health and safety, and it's really important work. But it's not enough. We need to work on our culture of safety. Mm-hmm. And then he said, 2 weeks ago, one of our drivers in Indonesia parked his truck on a hill. He jumped out of the truck and the truck started rolling. He immediately jumped behind the truck to try and prevent it from rolling and was killed instantly when he was crushed between his truck and the truck behind. That event causes us to ask one really important question. What are we doing here that caused that driver to get out of that truck and think truck first? We have to create a culture where the driver gets out of the vehicle and thinks safety first. This is a huge job, but it's the most important job ahead of us.
Yeah.
And he stopped.
Yeah.
And it was the impact was like I had people ringing me going, "Oh my goodness, did you see Andrew's talk?" Anyway, that's a huge change that he's communicating, and he was able to communicate it in just a few really key seconds rather than using 10 PowerPoint slides.
That's right. And that took 6 minutes or so?
6 minutes, that entire presentation.
And it probably didn't feel that 6 minutes anyway, because he had
No.
in the middle and the end, and everyone's listening. And straight away, I mean, what made him think, truck first and safety? And that's a culture thing. You didn't have to explain it anymore. Straight away, I'm thinking, the poor guy.
Yeah.
Just not thinking about anything else but the company that, let's save the truck when it's his life and it's all over.
And it's a great example of how you use story as a delivery mechanism for your messaging.
For your messaging, yeah. I love that. Oh, I could go on talking to you. I feel as though I've just been chatting to you, but I've realised this is a podcast and we have to come to an end. Look, it's so many wonderful lessons here, Mark. Now, if people want to get hold of you, because I know you do, you have your own Anecdote, have their own weekly podcast as well, too. Yes. And can you just explain, before we wrap this up, how people can get hold of you, what your main, I know it's around storytelling, but from memory, there's 3 categories. I might be wrong on this, that your stories, that your business focuses on. If you could just leave us with that information, if you would.
The quick overview. Great.
Yes.
Our tagline is story-powered communication. We believe there's an incredible opportunity for businesses and leaders to be more effective, more engaging, more influential by being able to tap into the power of this really natural tool that humans have used for millennia, but we don't use in business. So we help leaders be better communicators. So we've got story-powered leadership. We help organizations explain changes and strategies, and we call that story-powered strategy. Story-powered sales, the sort of story is an incredibly powerful sales tool if you know how to use it. And we also, data storytelling is one of the big ones. So there's so much data and so much emphasis on data, but I keep hearing people say things like, just give me the data, and then they ignore the data when they make the decisions. Right. So by embedding your data in a story, you can actually convey insight, but also impact decision-making. So you can inform decision-making and influence decision-making by being able to communicate your data better. So there's those 4 things that we do.
I love that. And people can get hold of you. I will post this when this podcast comes out towards the end of March, somewhere in April. People can get hold of you via LinkedIn, and obviously I'll post links to everything that you've got. And I think this is just going to be such a good education piece. We don't hear enough about storytelling, and I'm excited to hear what people have to say about it. So I'm definitely going to incorporate storytelling more into change delivery, because I think it will just, save a lot of time as well too, and it's more relatable.
Yeah, and that's probably one of the biggest myths about storytelling. All stories, they take too long.
Yes.
No, stories are one of the most time efficient, time effective communication devices known to humans. So, yeah.
And just before we go, because as you said that, because as soon as anyone starts telling me a story, they don't say, I'm going to tell you a story. My brain suddenly does something different. I think, oh, I know where they're going with this. Oh, really? Is that what they're going to say? I understand it now. Because your brain suddenly, there's something to that.
Absolutely, because our brains, we are not logical, rational machines, which we're taught in business, like, logical, rational. We are sense-making machines. Our brains are constantly trying to make sense of the world, and story plays to that perfectly, because our brains are going, but what happened? What happens next? Yes. And of course, story plays to that perfectly, because stories are about things that happen. They're about events in sequence, and it's just exactly as you say, a different part of your brain gets activated because you're tapping into the senses as well as, it's a hackneyed metaphor, but the left brain, right brain thing, right? Yeah. You're tapping into both sides.
Yes, marvellous, excellent. Look, thank you so much for joining me today, Mark. I've learnt so much, and I'm sure that our listeners will have too when this comes out. And to our listeners, if you love this, please like and subscribe, and look out for other short episodes coming up soon. Thank you so much, Mark.
Thanks, Alicia. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Oh.